Welcome to another episode of College Town Talk. I'm Jonathan Frank.
And I'm Shannon Stout.
Shannon, it is our first episode of 2025, and our podcast is now officially in its third year.
Happy New Year. Time flies when you're having fun, Jonathan. Now, speaking of the new year, and first off, can't believe what this is episode 41. Is that right?
41, yeah.
So, did you make any New Year's resolutions?
Well, Shannon, that would be a no. I learned a while back that if I don't make a New Year's resolution, I can't break a New Year's resolution. Always thinking one step ahead.
Oh, you got a rigged system going on there. Well, I guess that's one way to look at it. So, how about this? I'll make a resolution for the both of us to only have the best guest on the podcast this year. And, to start off this resolution correctly, this week's guests are sure to help us stay on track. We're talking to the one and only Dr. Katie Aikens. That's Tennessee Tech's Dean of Students and Assistant Vice President of Strategic Initiatives. What a title.
And then we're catching up with Dr. Stephen Canfield, Professor of Mechanical Engineering and Faculty Advisor for the Tech Engineering for Kids project.
I can't wait to talk with them both. Let's go ahead and kick things off with Dr. Katie Aikens.
Welcome back to College Town Talk. We are now joined by Tennessee Tech's Dean of Students and Assistant Vice President for Strategic Initiatives, Dr. Katie Aikens. Dean Aikens is a proud two-time Tech graduate who has served our university for more than 20 years, starting as a graduate assistant and later in roles such as Coordinator of Greek Life and University Programming and Director of Student Activities. In 2017, she became the first woman in Tennessee Tech history to serve as Dean of Students, and in 2021, she was also named Assistant Vice President for Strategic Initiatives. Dean Aikens has also been an adjunct instructor and is a dedicated community volunteer, including serving on the board of the local nonprofit CityScape. Outside of work, Dean Aikens enjoys traveling, flower gardening, and spending quality time with her son, husband, and mother. Dean Aikens, welcome to College Town Talk.
Thanks, Jonathan. Thanks, Shan. Appreciate you having me today.
Well, we're excited to have a chance to talk with you, and we, of course, want to talk about your service here at Tennessee Tech, but I want to start by asking about the path that got you here. I did a little LinkedIn creeping, or we'll say research, and for all of your many credentials, I think you've got 4 different degrees, many years spent working in education. I noticed your undergraduate degree was in political science, which I thought was interesting. So I imagine maybe as it does for all of us, plans kind of change and evolve. When did you know that you wanted to work in higher education?
Well, you're exactly right. Your sleuthing is correct. I graduated from Big Orange in the early aughts, early 2000s with a degree in political science. And like most political science majors, I wanted to go to law school. I had applied to several schools. I'd been accepted at some, and I was making plans to go. And then I had a change of heart, and I decided I wanted to help people in a little different way. So I applied to Tennessee Tech to receive an educational psychology and counselor education degree. And I joined Tennessee Tech back in 2003. So to pay for your college, it's always nice to have a graduate assistantship. So I took my resume around to several different departments, and I had an opening in the student activities department. So I had some experience being involved in my undergrad career, and I was hired on the spot, which was so awesome. So I spent the next year and a half planning concerts, events, activities, things like that for the community with the help of a small group of student leaders who wanted to see their ideas come to fruition. So after coordinating the homecoming parade and the homecoming activities, I decided I'm hooked. I want to help these students realize their dreams, their ideas, and see them in practice here on our campus. So I was fortunate enough when I applied for the coordinator position that became available in fall of 2005. I was a successful candidate, and I've never looked back.
Well, I just think that's amazing. You never know where your path's going to take you. And everybody, sometimes you'll hit a stop sign and you'll go, you know what, right, left, or straight ahead. And I think oftentimes it's fun to see someone else's journey where they're changing the course of what they envision their life to be, and then it winds up being this beautiful story. And I don't know, that inspires me, and I know that for students that you're working with. It has to inspire them to know that sometimes there's not just one right answer. Probably any path you would have decided to take would have wound up just as well, but we're grateful that you chose the path that you did, and we're glad to have you here. Now, Dean Aikens, as we are recording this interview today, we're about 6 weeks from the start of Women's History Month. And no account of women's history at Tennessee Tech would be complete without a mention of you. Now, when you found out that you would be the first woman to serve as Dean of Students in Tennessee Tech's history, which is a really big deal, what did that mean to you?
Well, that's a really great question, Shan, because and I've got a little bit of a long answer there. So first and foremost, I was just so grateful to be given the opportunity to do the job. The vice president at the time that hired me was Mark Burnett. I have a lot of respect for him, and I really appreciate that he entrusted me with that role. And also, our president, Dr. Oldham, had the confidence to give me that chance. But I didn't realize the significance of being the first female dean of students until much later. A couple of years after I was in the role, I got an email from OCM, our Office of Communications and Marketing, asking if they could do a story on me for Women's History Month as the first female dean of students. I said, "Oh, well, that's interesting. I didn't realize that was a distinction I held, but that's awesome. Very happy to cooperate."
Now you
Um,
need a plaque.
They did a great story and they put me up on social media. I was on the Facebook page and such, and I really appreciated that. But the impact of it was I'd worked at the university for over 12 years at that point. I'd worked with a lot of student leaders. And both on that Facebook post and also personally, emails, phone calls, text messages, I heard from students and former students that I had inspired them to go into higher education roles and seek roles that they were striving for. And that really meant a lot to me. So I think representation matters. I think it's important that we see women in higher education leadership roles. So I'm glad that was inspirational to some of my former students.
That's not surprising to hear, because I just in the short time I've been at Tennessee Tech, I hear people talk about how you've really been an encouragement and an inspiration to them, and I've heard it said, if you can see it, you can be it. And I have to imagine for young women on campus, that holds true. Seeing somebody like yourself in that role probably helps them to believe what's possible for their own career. Now, we have to ask, since you just weren't busy enough serving as Dean of Students and Assistant Vice President for Strategic Initiatives, you also took on a role in 2023 as Adjunct Instructor for a course titled Trends and Issues in Higher Education, which was part of Tech's new PhD program in higher education. So that got us thinking, what are some of those trends and issues in higher education today? I know you can't distill a 15-week course into one answer, but could you maybe give us one positive trend that you discussed with your class, and maybe one that might be more of a challenge?
Yes, absolutely. And that class was so much fun to teach. It was my first PhD class, of course, that I'd ever taught. And it was the first class of PhD students that we had in the program. So we were all learning together, me from them and them from me. We talked a lot about trends and issues. And one of the major positive themes that we discussed throughout was the expansion of online delivery when it comes to course instruction. I often refer to it as one of the silver linings of COVID-19. So we had to quickly flip to online instruction for many of our courses, all of our courses for a period of time. And that was hard and that was a learning curve, but a lot of that hard work is done and putting those courses into an online format. So how that benefits us now is our students have a little more flexibility when it comes to, say, a short-term illness or an injury where they're not able to attend class. Many times students can attend virtually to a class for a period of time. They have other options for taking online courses where they didn't exist before for an entire 15 weeks. So they're able to work and play and fit classes around their schedule. And so Tennessee Tech's done a great job with having those mix of options between in-person and online classes and also hybrid classes. So that's a positive, I would say, trend in higher education. I think a challenge, and this is a challenge nationwide, probably worldwide, is affordability of higher education. Nothing's getting any cheaper, right? And college is an investment, and every year it seems to go up, and it seems to be a value proposition for students. Is this worth it for me to invest 4, sometimes 5 years into an experience? Will it pay me back in the future? What's the value of my degree? And I think Tennessee Tech balances value and quality incredibly well, but we see some other institutions, maybe in other states, that don't do that quite as well. So how can we maximize the value for students? They're getting a quality education for a price that they can afford. And I think that's going to continue to be a persistent challenge.
Well, I would agree with that. My daughter graduated from tech a couple of years ago, and she has started what she considers her first adult job. And she was, I'm not even going to say surprised, but I think she was unsure about how prepared she would be in her new role, and she was doing marketing and journalism and all of that. And she got into her job, and about 3 weeks in, she goes, I knew all the answers to the questions they were asking me, and I just feel so prepared. And I think that speaks well to tech, that they're preparing these students to go out into a workforce with challenging jobs, and then they are excelling. And so that was something that I felt very validated for the money that I spent on her tuition, because you just don't know if you're getting the bang for your buck until that child of yours goes out into the workplace and sees the benefit for themselves. And so that's been a wonderful affirmation on my side. So I'm your testimonial to that. Now, we all know that you do a lot of good for Tennessee Tech, but some of our listeners may not know about all the good that you do in the community as well. Now, I happen to know you're a board member for CityScape, which is, of course, our local nonprofit dedicated to preserving and enhancing the beautiful historic downtown region right here in Cookeville. Our visitor shop is 2 doors down from CityScape. I'm good friends with Farron Kefauver, and she is very proud that you are on that board. What was it about the mission of Cityscape that wanted to make you get involved in that area?
Cityscape is a wonderful organization. I've appreciated their events for a long time. I knew that they were involved in Taste of the Town and Fall Fun Fest and a lot of the things that we enjoy as community members here in Cookeville, but I didn't know a lot about the mission until I was approached to join the organization as a board member. So I work with a great group of fellow board members and Farron. They're so dynamic and so committed to helping enhance the downtown. And that really dovetails with what I've done for most of my career, is create opportunities for students to have fun things to do on campus, to enjoy their experience here, get involved in programs and activities, and to try to help tie the Tennessee Tech experience with the larger downtown and community experience for our students. The more our students are connected with our community, the more they're going to want to stay here after their 4 or 5 years here at Tennessee Tech. And I know many students who've stayed in the community, who've raised their families here. I still see them all the time. I see them at homecoming. I see them in the downtown. I've watched their children grow up. So creating those connections between Tennessee Tech and Cookeville is incredibly important to me. And my work with Cityscape, I think, furthers that effort.
Well, it's funny you should mention that, because my office is in 2 places, but today I'm at the convention center, and we had a gentleman come in and want to take a tour of the facility. And he was telling us, he said, well, I've lived in Cookeville most of my life now. And I said, oh, well, when did you move to Cookeville? And he said, well, I went to Tech. And he said, I intended to go back home. And he didn't tell me where he was from. But he said, and I did go work somewhere else. I went to another city and I worked. He said, but about a little less than a year later, I thought, I miss Cookeville. And he came back and he said, I've lived here ever since. He said, I have made this my home. And we hear that often, tech graduates of all ages. And they go to tech, they don't intend to stay in Cookeville, but they have such a good, wonderful experience of being accepted and belonging and all those things. And it is a wonderful place to live. And so they wind up either coming back and choosing to live here, or they stay. And so that is not uncommon, but just Just 10 minutes before this podcast, I had a man say the same thing, and we hear that all the time.
Finally, Dean Aikens, we like to end every interview on this podcast with the same question. And as long as you've served at Tennessee Tech, I'm really interested to hear your answer. That question is, what is one way that Tennessee Tech has impacted your life?
One way is incredibly difficult, and I'm sure your other guests have also made that comment. It's hard to distill it down to one way, but if I have to, I would say community. Tennessee Tech has given me a great sense of community for the entire time I've been here and further on. I've met many people who are nearest and dearest to my heart. Some of the people I love the most, my lifelong friends, I have met through my connection with the Tennessee Tech community, and I wouldn't have that otherwise. So I'm very grateful and thankful to have the opportunity to serve Tennessee Tech and to also have a sense of community from that service.
Well, Dean Aikens, thank you so much for being our guest today on College Town Talk.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
And for our listeners, learn more about the Dean of Students office at Tennessee Tech by visiting tntech.edu/DOS.
Welcome back to College Town Talk. We are now joined by Tennessee Tech Professor of Mechanical Engineering, Dr. Stephen Canfield. Dr. Canfield has been part of the Golden Eagle community for over 25 years and has won numerous awards for his research and instruction, including the Tennessee Board of Regents Academic Excellence Award, the Tennessee Department of Education Project of Excellence Award, and the Tennessee Department of Health Partners and Leadership Award. And we're not done yet. And the Tennessee Higher Education Commission's Harold Love Community Service Award. So I have outkicked my coverage here to handle this interview. Dr. Canfield has also been named a top 10 scientist in Tennessee by Business Tennessee magazine and has earned national attention from the likes of CNN as the faculty advisor for the university's Tech Engineering for Kids project, which tasks engineering students with creating custom manufactured products for local children with special needs. I love this. Dr. Canfield, welcome to College Town Talk.
Well, hi, Shan. Thanks for having me.
Well, we're thrilled to have you here today, and already your bio is overwhelmingly outstanding. We have so many questions we want to ask you, but let's start by talking about tech engineering for kids. This is truly a special project, and over the years, I hear that students have created custom prosthetics for a middle school drummer in Murfreesboro who was born without arms. Also, they manufactured a one-of-a-kind indoor playground for a young child in Lebanon with autism, made a specially designed adjustable chair for a local preschooler right here in Cookeville to help him with his fine motor skills, and built a wheelchair accessible sink for a 9-year-old in Sparta. And I love that all of this is happening right here in our communities, and the list goes on and on. How did this effort first get started? How did it come to be? And what part have you found most rewarding over the past several years?
Thank you, Shan. And thanks for your interest in my project. I just love this, and I love the chance to talk with you about it. It started, as you pointed out, a while ago. When I came here as a young professor, I'd taken a couple classes in college education at my, during my graduate work, and I really was focused with the idea of having students not only learn, we kind of think of learning, in the typical lecture homework fashion, but become engaged in their learning. So I wanted to create project-based learning as part of my classes, which is not untypical. And so as a young faculty, I was looking around for ideas. Just randomly, I got connected with Dean Ritchie, who started the Tennessee Early Intervention System program here in the Upper Cumberland at Tennessee Tech. He was one of the founders. That program provides services to children with special needs before they get into the school system. Again, as a young faculty member, he was at the time, I believe, the dean of the college. Somebody said, hey, maybe you could do something with him. He connected. He took me under his wing, and we pretty quickly found that he had children with needs that you couldn't just meet with off-the-shelf purchases. And I had students that needed real-world engineering experience. And it seemed pretty obvious after, maybe a semester of just talking this through. We started the program together. We called it early on, we called it he was an early interventionist, working with children very young age. So we called it early intervention in mechanical engineering. I've since changed the name to tech engineering for kids. But the idea is the same. So we kicked the idea off with twofold. One is in our broader Middle Tennessee region, we have so many children that have needs that can't be met. Again, they can't be met by buying something. They need custom design technologies. And I have students that need these real world experiences. We created this program to put them together in a very formulaic, I say formula way, but we've got a program that guides them through this process. They start by, they start my class. During the class, they learn technical design skills. Throughout their whole program, they're learning that. But in my class, they're learning technical design skills. And at the same time, they're carrying out this technical design project. And it doesn't, what's maybe unique with some other classes, it does not end in a report, but ends in a product that's tested here and then reviewed by medical people and then handed off to the family and child. So
I love everything about this program. And, we are a very, what I call accessibility aware community. We have the exceptional bean that employs adults with special needs. We have handicap accessible waterfalls, and the Visitors Bureau. We are working on a project right now with the state of Tennessee called Waterfalls for All to help everyone with any sort of accessibility need. And it doesn't just have to be handicap accessible, but it can be, is this waterfall safe for children to see? Is this, if I have had knee replacement or hip replacement, what are the capabilities for me to be able to access the various waterfalls? And so we're working on this accessibility piece to help educate our visitors so that everyone has an opportunity to see a waterfall regardless of their barrier. And my grandfather lost the use of his legs at 16 due to an accident. And so he had a lot of accessibility issues in his generation. There was not a lot of handicap access. And so I'm very sensitive to that and always very aware, trying to make our community better. This project is creating students to be not only philanthropic, but to be very aware of other people's, barriers and needs, and putting them on the path to help solve problems. There's no telling what this program would create later as these students have grown up and moved forward. They might be inventors for, an accessibility based path. I love this. It is a beautiful project.
Well, and Dr. Canfield, as Shan explained, Tech Engineering for Kids has created countless products for deserving children in our community, many of which have gone on to become some major local news stories. But I wonder, because there have been so many, we'd be here all day, trying to list them all. Is there a particular product or design that stands out to you over the years that your students have worked on? Maybe one that you found most memorable?
Jonathan, I'm an academic, so I'll go on. So cut me off. There's been so many. We do about 20 to 30, maybe 25 a year, hundreds of students a year, 25 to 30 families or more a year. And it's been going on, as Shan pointed out, for a long time. Exceptional Bean, there was a young man working there. We created a bike to help him getting back and forth to work. I've had students where we've done projects and they show up at Tennessee Tech as students. And they come back here and then they're helping others. It's just amazing. I mean, I guess when you do it this long, you see that we got a lot of nice attention nationally with the prosthetics problem, but every project is it's hard to imagine. You see that one, but every project is impactful. Probably you're asking for one out of hundreds. When I was a much younger faculty member, pretty early on getting started, there was a family, and I was really learning. I've gone through this, my students go through this transformation, and I regularly do too, where you just, you appreciate you have these skills, you have a particular way you look at the world, and you go through this experience, and it just opens your mind. And also to Shan's point, by the way, it's a community, our community. It's not just I mean, when you need all these things, you need some engineering, you need, medical expertise, you need community members, and this is just one of the ways we fit in. But anyhow, many years, a few years ago, there was a family. It was a kind of an Amish, or actually a Mennonite family, and they had adopted a girl who, and at the time she was like maybe 4. They had a big family, 6, 7. They lived I think up near Muddy Pond, and they all had ponies. Everyone had horses. All the kids had ponies. This little girl, she really had no legs and maybe one arm or two arms. I mean, I'm describing it well. But the most loving child. I was still new, so I actually went and met the family early, and now my students just do all that interaction. But at the time, it was Dean Ritchie and Philomena Palmer said, "Hey, here's a really aggressive project, but we think you can do it, Steve." So they took me out there and I met the little girl, and I just didn't know what to think. I've never I've never interacted. She climbed all over me. She could get around everywhere. It was amazing. And she wanted to ride a pony. It was simple as that. You know, her brother and sister all rode a pony. So that was our job. I'll call her Michaela, but we'll just call her Michaela, but she wanted to ride a pony. So I went back to my students and this was one of, again, about 12, 13 projects, but I had a team of students that jumped on this project and they decided to make a pony cart. And that's what they did. So they made this completely customizable pony cart. It was beautiful. It did all the things she wanted to do with the pony. I mean, just such a nice job. We delivered it to them. Well, it turns out she also wanted her own pony. When she said, "I wanted to ride a pony," she also thought she was going to get a pony from us. And, we don't have ponies here at Tennessee Tech. We just made the cart. And it just didn't cross my mind that we also need to deliver a pony. So that story got picked up like by Channel 4 News. And I remember they did the story. It was like a 5 or I don't know, it was maybe a noon story. I don't remember. But the end of the day or the next day, she had like 4 ponies. It showed up because the little girl's there next to her car. She says, "I don't have a pony." And on Channel 4 News. And she had 5 or 6 ponies. So they did another story and she named them all Pickles. It
Sweet.
was amazing. I mean, I like what my students did, but I just was so amazed by this young girl and what she could do. And it was nice just to be part of that experience. So pony cart, I'll throw that out as a favorite. And Pickles.
I would agree. And all Pickles the pony, 1, 2, 3, 4. That's precious. Now, Dr. Canfield, as much as I enjoy talking about tech engineering for kids, you're also working with other tech colleagues on a new nearly $5 million grant from the U.S. Department of Energy to help improve electric vehicle battery recycling. Can you tell us more about this project? And for folks here in the Upper Cumberland who might be wondering how that impacts their day-to-day life, what would you tell them?
Sure. Well, I'd love to, Shannon. And I'm a technical person, so I'll probably talk a little more on the technology, perhaps, and try to best I can describe how it'll work. So, of course, we're in a mode where we're somewhat transitioning to electric vehicles, and it's a brand new economy being built around, a brand new technology being introduced to us. And we're on the front end. We're thinking about, maybe trying an electric vehicle, maybe bringing one into your car, your home for the first time. But on the flip side, with other cars, we've been around forever, and there's a life cycle to these cars. You buy the car, you drive the car, but then it doesn't end there. The car goes away, maybe somebody else buys it. Eventually it becomes something else, maybe another car or something else. And we're brand new on this economy. So this project is thinking about that latter stage. If as we're starting to adopt cars, what do we do with all this stuff? And particularly it's the batteries, because there's lots of batteries, like this idea of, well, where does that go? So this project is engaging in the technology of how we look at the life cycle of that car and the life cycle of the battery. Currently, there's just not, prior to electric vehicles, there weren't that many batteries to be managed. So the technologies to recycle them, repurpose them was somewhat minimal. And now there's a lot of work going on in how we recycle those. We are looking at introducing collaborative robotics and some automation tools into recycling those, and also making it fit better in these rural communities. So rather than having cars just kind of disappear in the woods, some way of making it inexpensive and also being able to help with that second stage of cars. So it's working on the technologies around recycling of electric vehicles and bringing or refurbishing, particularly the battery systems for these vehicles using robotics and other technologies related to that. So.
Dr. Canfield, as we said in the introduction, you have had a long and enduring career here at Tennessee Tech, stretching across 3 different university presidents, if I've done my math right: President Volpe, President Bell, and President Oldham. So I have to imagine you've seen a lot over the years. What have been the biggest changes you've seen in your years here at Tennessee Tech?
Well, it's been my entire career. I mean, from day one. And it's just been wonderful. I was able to develop in my career, establish relationships, be part of some of the transformation. I guess at the moment, just since it's fresh in our mind, maybe one of the biggest changes is what's been occurring over the last 5 or so years on the campus, really the investment of the state, the investment of the community in our facility. We have a combination of new programs being rolled out, a whole variety of new programs. I've been involved directly with a mechatronics and robotics program, but we also have programs on vehicle engineering, aerodynamics. We have a brand new program in nuclear engineering, and that's being supported by the state with facilities. Of course, you see on campus the new buildings, the new labs, and it's really been probably the biggest transformation I've seen on campus, both with these external resources, buildings and labs and equipment, and then also human capital. Those of us that are here getting energized, moving and, establishing further in these fields, and then bringing new people on. So I'd say this recent growth in engineering.
Finally, Dr. Canfield, we like to end each interview on this podcast with the same question. What is one way that Tennessee Tech has impacted your life?
Oh, gosh. Well, I mean, it has been my entire career. It's hard in my mind, to separate myself and Tennessee Tech. But I would say, we're talking about the tech project, but I guess I would give my answer as follows. I was, as a person, created with some skills, technical skills, and the desire to use those technical skills, to put those technical skills to work in a way that other people find useful. And maybe in a few cases, transformative in their life. I mean, that's just the way I am. It's what I love to do. What Tennessee Tech has done for me is given me a home in which I could share this passion, to help to use, passion for technical things, but actually use those technical things in a way that other people find useful with other people. Obviously, my colleagues, many of them are engineering colleagues, so they're tech nerds like myself, but particularly students, hundreds, literally thousands of students. I get a chance to share this passion, and those students reflect that back to me. It doesn't go out there one direction. I get to share it with them, and they share it back with me. And one of the significant ways we engage in this passion for developing technical things to help others is this tech engineering for kids. It's not the only one, but this is one of the very significant ways. Of course, I work on it hard, but the students put so much time and energy into it. As you can imagine, creating a pony cart or prosthetics or a playground, that takes a lot more work than what you might think of or what you might have experienced in a college class. But the students do that, so they share that passion. And I'll also say that I'm supported throughout the entire university. There's a lot more than just what we talk about here. I mean, there's finances, there's legal issues, of creating pony carts for little kids. There's administration, there's technical expertise, space, all those things. I'm just supported so much by the university. It's a true blessing in my life. I couldn't imagine really being able to recreate this anywhere else but here. So I'm very thankful for Tennessee Tech for that.
Well, Dr. Canfield, thank you so much for being our guest today on College Town Talk.
My pleasure.
And for our listeners, to learn more about tech engineering for kids, visit www.techengineeringforkids.com.
What a great way to kick off 2025. This has been a great podcast. We want to thank Dr. Katie Aikens and Dr. Stephen Canfield for being our guests today on College Town Talk.
And thanks to all of you for starting your year with us. While you're here, do us a quick favor by hitting that subscribe button and sharing a review. It all helps to spread the word about the great things happening right here in Cookeville.
And we'll meet you back right here again next week for more conversations with the people who make Cookeville, Tennessee's college town.
College Town Talk is presented by Tennessee Tech University in partnership with the Cookeville-Putnam County Visitors Bureau. Your hosts are Jonathan Frank and Shan Stout, and original music is performed by Andrew Buckner. Visit us online at tntech.edu/collegetowntalk.